Imagine moving into a new home, expecting a fresh start, only to realize the house has plans of its own. Strange whispers in the dark, unseen forces lurking in the shadows, and a family pushed to the edge by something they couldn't explain. Even the police, doctors, and social workers witnessed horrors they could never forget. But the most terrifying part? The evil didn't stay behind. It followed them. What really happened inside the demon house of Gary, Indiana? And could it happen to you? Stay with me till the end, because this story will make you question everything. It starts with a house, a small, ordinary house on Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. A house like any other. Until it wasn't. Until the walls whispered. Until the darkness breathed. Until the people inside were no longer themselves. A woman, Latoya Ammons, moved into the house with her mother and 3 children. They were just looking for a fresh start, but the house had other plans. The moment they walked in, something was off. The air was heavy, thick with something unseen. And then the footsteps began. Slow, deliberate, coming from the basement when no one was down there. At first, they tried to ignore it. Maybe it was the old wood creaking. Maybe it was just their imagination. But then came the shadows, moving against the walls, shifting in places where no shadow should be. The children started waking up with screams stuck in their throats, their eyes wild with terror, but they couldn't explain why. And then, one night, the youngest boy was found in a trance, his eyes rolling back, a sinister grin curling his lips. Latoya called for help. A priest, a doctor, anyone who could explain what was happening in that house. But there was no logical answer. And it only got worse. The children began speaking in voices that were not their own. Voices that growled, that mocked, that whispered things no child should know. The grandmother swore she saw one of them lifted into the air and thrown against the wall. Neighbors heard screams at all hours, but whenever they looked, the house was still, silent, as if it were holding its breath, waiting. The family ran, but the evil followed. Wherever they went, they felt its presence, watching, waiting, hungry. Desperate, they sought help from the police. They didn't believe at first. How could they? It sounded like something out of a horror movie. But then they entered the house, and what they saw, what they heard, would haunt them forever. Officers witnessed a dark figure standing in the corner of a room, only to vanish when they turned on the lights. One officer claimed he felt an invisible force pushing against his chest, cold and suffocating. And the most terrifying discovery was in the basement, an area where the dirt had been disturbed, as if something had been buried there long ago. The officers left, refusing to return, their hands shaking as they signed their reports. Then came the medical staff. Doctors and nurses at the hospital saw the youngest boy scream and snarl like an animal, his body convulsing unnaturally. One social worker swore she saw him climb the wall, literally, his hands and feet gripping the surface like some inhuman creature. She ran. Others tried to rationalize, but deep down, they knew. They had seen something beyond explanation. A priest was called. He walked through the house, his Bible clutched tightly, his voice steady as he performed the exorcism. The house resisted. Doors slammed, objects flew, and an unseen force growled from the walls. It took multiple exorcisms, and even then, the priest warned the family, the house may be cleansed, But what had been unleashed was not so easily banished. Latoya Ammons and her children never returned. They left everything behind: clothes, furniture, memories. They knew that house did not want them. It had claimed its space, its darkness undisturbed once more. The house was bought by paranormal investigator Zak Bagans. He wanted to know the truth. He wanted proof. He demolished the house, hoping to rid the land of its curse. But some say the darkness did not leave. Some say it only sleeps, waiting for the next soul to step too close. And now, the land remains empty. A patch of dirt where a house once stood. A house that should not have existed. A house that was never just a house. The question is, if it could happen there, could it happen anywhere? Could it happen to you?